Wow, this is a great room.
Amazing room, amazing room. You guys
Yeah.
know I love that word. And so it gives me great pleasure to say this in the city of Chicago. Good evening, everybody. We have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal? What do we have?
Indeed, we do. A lot of big stories breaking this evening. Here, let me go through a little bit of what we're gonna do here. So we have a little bit of the normal Breaking Points vibe. We've got our monologues, of course, that we're gonna deliver. I'll save for you what the topics are there. We got a few little games we're gonna play. We're gonna see who came from the furthest away place, which I have to say you guys have a lot to live up to because in Atlanta, we had someone there from New Zealand. Crazy, right? It's like, why?
Across the Pacific Ocean. Okay.
So we'll go through that.
Yeah.
We'll figure out who came from the furthest. We're going to do a little talk about the midterms, political horse race stuff. We got another little trivia game for you. I'll save the details for later. Of course, we have to talk about the media. And then we're going to do something. This is our first time doing this. We're going to let you guys pick one of the topics. So when we get to that, Saagar will give you some instructions about how to do that. You text in your choice, whatever. We'll figure that out down the road. But you guys will actually get to pick one of the topics. And then the last thing we'll do is a little Ask Me Anything. So that is the plan. What do you guys think? Sound good?
I love the vibe in this room. One of the things that we decided when we were going to do this tour is we thought, what is the purpose of a live show for Breaking Points? And I think that the purpose is getting in front of all of you. I mean, I don't think it would surprise most of the people in this room that we're not exactly the most popular people in Washington. Sometimes the numbers on the screen can feel a little bit abstract, and you're like, are these people real?
Yeah.
And you come here, and I look at all of you. Guys are smiling, people from all over. I mean, from not only the area, people of different political stripes, races, genders, etc. And everybody, what we found in Atlanta, everybody was talking with each other, Krystal. People were so happy. And like, to me, this is a thank you. Like, that's why we decided to do this, to meet all of you. Like, to see that you believe in a mission so much that we never even thought possible when we started this.
I mean, you think about this. So we had a long time, obviously, after Rising. We did a couple live shows. The last one was in Brooklyn, and then everything shut down for the pandemic. And so it's so nice to be back on the road and totally independent, thanks to you all. And so that really is what it's all about. I mean, when you think about it, it still gives me chills to think about when we were, taking the risk, and I don't know how this is gonna go, and we're putting the Saagar's beautiful desk on the credit card and wondering if this is all gonna work out. And you all showed up for us. So it was the least we could do to be able to come out on the road, to see you all face to face, to say thank you in person. So that's what this is really all about tonight. We put a lot of thought into this show. We're actually doing a few things that are new, a few things that are different. So I hope it's gonna be really fun. I hope you guys are gonna be able to, engage and interact with us as well. Our spirit here, although we are gonna cover a couple kind of harder topics, is good vibes. And what that means is we'll pretend for a night we're not facing imminent nuclear Armageddon. So how about that?
And if we are, at least we were all together.
At least we get to enjoy our last night together.
With my favorite people on the planet.
The missiles could be in the air right now, so we may as well enjoy ourselves while we've got the time.
We're gonna enjoy ourselves quite a bit. Look, this is all about gratitude, like seeing every single one of you, and anytime we get to meet you guys, it gives us life. I mean, this is what powers us in the studio every single day. It's what powers us whenever some folks in the town that we happen to live in aren't so happy. And for me, this was not supposed to happen. Like, we didn't know, Krystal, what we were tapping into. And it's just, again, I relive that moment, June 2021. We're like, oh my God, is this shit really gonna work? Like, you look at the credit card statement, we bought the desk, we got the bricks. I'm like, damn, man, you press publish on that first YouTube video.
Oh, these bookshelves behind us are kind of pricey. I don't know.
Yeah, Krystal loves the bookshelves, though.
They are really pretty, though. They're a good choice.
Yeah, thank you. And
yeah, that's me.
That was all her. And it's just, and then to see the success and to see where we are today, it gives us belief that something bigger that we're just really getting started. Not only breaking points, but I think the entire country is going to change. And what we're going to focus on today are those underlying topics that the mainstream media really refuses to discuss. They refuse to acknowledge the energy and the feeling of the people who are in this room, that these are real. This is a movement. And that's the way that we think about it every single day.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
thank you all so much for doing that.
Yeah, and one of the things, before we jump in, one of the things we're going to talk about tonight is the way that the media landscape is dramatically shifting. I mean, you do see in real time the way cable news in particular is basically like a zombie entity. Now, that doesn't mean they don't still have power and all of those things, but there's no guarantees that what comes after it is ultimately better. So what we hope that you all are a part of and that we're part of is creating that thing that comes next that is going to be the actual media ecosystem that you all and the entire country deserve. So thank you for putting your faith in us that we could be a small part of that project.
All right. Enough of the sappy thank yous. I think we've all heard enough.
Yeah.
All right. As you guys all know, the best part of the show, Krystal, what are you taking a look at? Roll it, James. Woo! Look at that! Shout out to the graphics team.
The graphics guys did an amazing job tonight. All right, folks, I thought it was only appropriate if we kicked off tonight's programming by talking about the corrupt bastards in DC who are destroying the country as we speak. And in particular, I have a great story for you about a perfect Democratic Party own goal that is very likely and already is coming back to bite them in terms of the midterms. So let's start with the backstory. You all probably know, if you are in fact Breaking Points fans, there's a little issue in Washington where members of Congress are allowed to buy and sell stocks. And they're even allowed to buy and sell stocks for companies that are involved in the committees that they sit in. I mean, direct, blatant corruption, conflict of interest. It's insane, and we should never, ever get used to the fact that this is the status quo, okay? So, none of the legislators really wanted to do anything about this issue, but they recognized that it was politically very potent. And part of the reason they recognized that is because people like you made it clear that you were disgusted, absolutely enraged and disgusted with the status quo. Something like 76% of Americans say they want to see that particular practice of lawmakers being able to buy and sell stocks completely banned. So the pressure was hot enough that Nancy Pelosi and the Democratic Party thought, all right, well, we can't just do nothing, but we don't want to really solve the problem. So what are we going to do? Pelosi decides to schedule what effectively was a sham vote on a rigged bill that she knew was designed to fail. And the way they rigged it to fail was two ways. So first of all, they made it very expansive. Now, in my opinion, it should be very expansive, but they knew this would be a deal breaker for the Republicans in the Senate in particular. So it was going to apply not only to the legislative branch, but also to the judicial branch and also to the executive branch. So she knew that would kill it in the Senate. On the other side, she also added in a loophole that made it basically completely worthless and toothless. They said you can have the stocks in a blind trust, and that's already kind of skeezy. But then they went even further and said, and we get to decide what a blind trust even is. So, gigantic loophole that you can drive a Mack truck through, and predictably the thing failed. Now, it's not just me that's saying this was a sham rigged vote. Some of the lawmakers who actually cared about potentially getting this through, Abigail Spanberger, who I have all sorts of other issues with but seems genuine on this issue, she had been negotiating with Republicans, bipartisan bill over months. That thing didn't get a vote, but this sham bill did, and Spanberger said of Pelosi, this was a failure of leadership and that this bill was rigged and designed to fail. Okay, so that's what happens. Lo and behold, because this is a powerful political issue, Republicans, who also don't want to actually act on this, saw a political opportunity. And they realized they could hit Democrats for their hypocrisy and their corruption. So Pelosi not only did a disservice to the nation, she ends up kneecapping her own incumbents and making it so much more difficult for them to win. So now Republicans are running ads in swing districts across the country, hitting Democrats on this very issue. Let's take a look at what this looks like. James, go ahead and roll the first shot.
Congress has a law to stop insider trading, but
that
Cindy
bass.
Axne didn't follow it. Secret stock trades, and Axne got busted. 40 trades totaling as much as 645 grand. That's right, 645 grand.
Extreme liberal Tom Malinowski, under the microscope, under investigation for profiting off the pandemic. He bought or sold as much as $1 million of stock in companies with a stake in COVID recovery. Malinowski profited. Look closer. Malinowski voted for trillions in new taxes and spending, sending inflation soaring.
So you get the picture. They're getting hit over this corruption, and that would have been cut off if they had actually passed a bill that dealt with this, but they didn't want to do that. So not only do they not get to run on the bill, they're getting hit on the same thing, and they don't have the opportunity to also say, hey, the Republicans didn't want this thing either. So they are completely screwing themselves over, and we know it because we see it in the polling that Cindy Axne, that was in the first ad there, she's now losing her race in Iowa. And why? Because over the past few weeks since they've been running this ad, independents have moved against her. So incredible own goal from the Democrats. But we also have to be honest, even if this got through, this is like just the tip of the iceberg in terms of corruption. There's actually a story this week, I don't know if you guys saw it. We've covered before how the Fed, which is obviously incredibly powerful and particularly incredibly powerful with regards to the economy, how they have been incredibly corrupt. And now we just learned this week, the Federal Reserve President of Atlanta had to admit that he has been violating their own rules and ethics around finances for the whole 7 years that he's been in there. Let me read this to you. It says he's led the Fed since 2017. They outlined multiple violations, including trades during the Fed's blackout periods and other times of market stress when they're supposed to be barred from financial activities. He also noted that he filed incomplete information every single year of his presidency. I mean, they are, truly. And these are the people that are running the country, and they don't want to change it. They don't want to change it at all. And that's before we even talk about the revolving door issue, another thing we've talked about on the show. Do you remember this clip we played you before of a lawmaker, this is how brazen they are, bragging about the fact that one of his top aides was going to directly walk from his office over and get a cushy job on Wall Street, now working for the very banks that they were supposed to be holding to account. James, let's play that clip.
The gentleman from Indiana, Mr. Hollingsworth, is now recognized for 5 minutes.
Well, good afternoon. I'm excited to be here with each of you. Before I get started on my questions, Mr. Moynihan, I wanted to let you know, Saruthi, raise your hand, Saruthi. She has been my team member for a couple of years now, but on Monday, she becomes a Bank of America team member.
Oh, isn't that nice?
About which she is very, very excited.
Heartwarming.
So I hope you'll take good care of her and know and recognize the talent that she has shown already in our office. I'm sure she'll do the same at Bank of America.
We will do that, and her father already works for us, so he'll...
Daddy's already there, don't worry about it.
Family business.
Don't worry about it. Throw in a little nepotism on top of it all.
I appreciate the opportunity to chat about some of these issues today. What I'm really interested in is the state of the economy.
So,
Very interesting.
yeah, so that clip also drives Saagar crazy because he mispronounces her name, right?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, like, it's Shruti. It's not that fucking hard to announce, all right? Like, also, it tells us about her. She never corrected him for 5 years.
For 5 years, she
what
just
a
took it.
psychopath.
Imagine if I
Who
was
is
still
this?
up here like, Saagar, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's Saagar, isn't it? Anyway, I digress. The real takeaway from this clip is they don't even know that this is a problem. I mean, they're so used to this being the status quo that they brazenly brag about it. I mean, chummy, like, oh, isn't that sweet? Isn't that cute? Isn't that funny? It's astonishing. But none of us should ever forget to be shocked and outraged by what an unconscionable situation it ultimately is. And I think what we've learned from this year, I think there's a positive and I think there's a challenge. The positive is, because of people like you, people around the country, you actually forced the issue onto the table, right? You forced a bunch of these people to make total fools of themselves too in how they responded to the issue. And you forced a revelation of who might actually have a good heart and truly want to, quote unquote, serve the public and who's just completely full of shit. So the bottom line here is you just have to keep up the pressure. I mean, we have to relentlessly shame and cajole and force these people and punish the ones who won't go along, because otherwise, we all know they ain't gonna change. That's the bottom line. So, Saagar, are you hopeful that we could ever get a real bill with teeth passed?
I have no choice but to have hope.
Yeah, there you go.
Look,
That's true.
we have to put it, people in this room, none of this would have even happened. When we did our first segment, I'll never forget this, whenever Nancy Pelosi, one of her trades by a guy named Unusual Whales on Twitter, I highly recommend you guys follow him if possible.
Yeah, shout
Let's
out
give
to
a shout
him.
out to him.
Absolutely.
I don't know who he is, but he does great work.
Yeah.
So he surfaces and sends me this thing. He's like, can you believe this? Like, her husband just did an options trade for like $1 million directly ahead of a major coronavirus relief bill. And I was like, this shit can't be real. I was like, there's no way. This would be a major story. So I'm looking into it, totally legit, all of that. We do our first story, gangbusters. I mean, as far as I know, it was us and maybe one or two other people who were even willing to talk about this. After we beat the drum and several others, including him, wrote an entire report and popularized it, then, lo and behold, mainstream media wakes the fuck up and they're like, oh, I guess we should maybe look slightly into this. They do one story, and then what happens? Finally, somebody's got to ask a question. That's the power of asking the question. That's why whenever we look at part of the way that the entire media game is rigged, it's all about controlling what people even get pressure on. And that's where the people don't have the voice right now.
Yeah, well, and it's an interesting dynamic too, because mainstream picked up on this after independent media did.
Yes.
And they saw the power of it. I mean, basically, they made a business decision. They saw, oh, there's a lot of interest and clicks in this. So maybe we'll do a little bit of research. So you have Business Insider that did a report. You have the New York Times, actually, I think it was New York Times or Wall Street Journal that just did a report about how there's like 97 of these lawmakers who are buying and selling stocks directly related to the committees they sit on. So as brazen as it gets. You had a Wall Street Journal report that just came out about how there's this is a crazy one too, over 1,000 senior government officials, so in the executive branch, who are doing the same shit. They're buying and selling stocks of the companies that they are supposed to be the watchdogs of. And then you have the whole like, how tough on them are they gonna be if they know their portfolio is gonna benefit if this company skates by with whatever wrongdoing they're engaged in? Then you add on to that, of course, the revolving door. They walk across the street from their quote-unquote public service onto Wall Street, onto Big Pharma, whatever. And then they turn around and wonder, like, oh, why don't people have trust in government? Gee, I wonder. It's a mystery. We'll never know.
It's a true mystery. It's like trust in Congress, 13%, trust in institutions, all-time low. Oh no, they all just know these are terrible revolutionary Nazis, all these other people. That's the problem. They want to convince us that the problem is all of us who are in this room, regardless of what you believe or where you're from, instead of pointing the finger at them. So keep up the pressure, guys. It's the only thing that we can do. Not only, not just our segments, but in general, telling people, tell them what you just heard from Krystal. A lot of people, they know it in their gut, but whenever you can confirm something with data and the facts, that is what pushes it forward. So it's a year-by-year struggle, and I do have confidence. I think one day it will pass. We'll see, and if it's shitty, I can guarantee you that we're gonna call it out.
I'll never forget when we were at Rising and we interviewed Congressman Ted Lieu.
Oh my God,
and we were pressing him about Hunter Biden's business entanglements. And he said, well, people sit on boards. I mean, that was the mentality. That's literally what his answer was. And we're like, you don't see the issue here? That's how used to this situation that they are. They take it completely for granted that they should just be able to cash in, or as Dan Crenshaw said, better themselves through grifting off their public service. It's disgusting. All right, Saagar, what are you looking at?
Well, what do we got up there, folks? The American dream. Topic I'm pretty obsessed with, as most of you guys know. And I wanted to make a little bit personal tonight. My parents, they came to this country 1989. My dad had just graduated. My mom was a student. They, by all accounts, they traveled literally all the way across the Pacific to a foreign land. Like, that's pretty crazy, right? For people whose parents have done that, I can't really empathize with what that situation would be like. Within a couple of years, they bought a house. My parents got a job. They had a car, solidly middle class. That was one of those things that wasn't just promised to them, like millions of people who came to the country who fulfilled that, but the people who were born here. Most people could get up, if you have children, in the 90s and think, you know what, my kid is gonna be better off than I am. And what I think it's all rooted in is this thing I've just been obsessed with ever since I discovered it, 1971. What the fuck happened that year? Every time we look at it, every single time, the entire world completely changed. So James, let's go ahead and put this graphic up. I'm absolutely obsessed with this. Look at this shit and tell me if you can even empathize, all right? This is the cost of living in 1971. So I'm gonna read, I pulled a little bit of data for you guys. In 1971, a house cost $25,200. Who can guess what the average price of a house is today in the United States?
$500,000.
All right, $500,000. It's actually $392,000, which is low. You know, people in Chicago are like, "What the fuck is he talking?"
They're like, "That's a bargain. It's a steal."
Like, I don't think so. But no, actually it's around $700,000 in any modern urban area. How is anyone supposed to afford that? If you even consider this, in the income, 1971, $10,600. Today, that's $68,000. Here's the thing though, at that time, that was a 2.5% or 2,500 multiple. Today, that's 600, just at the average price. So how many people have even gotten a raise in that time? Here's the truth, none, actually, because 1971, wages have been effectively flat. People got no raise, and the price of a house went up by 600%, sometimes 1,000, sometimes 2,000. And whenever you think about that, how is anybody supposed to not just come to this country, but how is anyone supposed to live in this country and think, you know what? Not only am I gonna be possibly worse off than my parents, but my kids may be worse off than me. And it's because the game is rigged. I mean, Harvard University, I've got the tuition up there, was at, let's see, it was at $2,600. Today, wow. I just checked it this morning.
Wow.
$52,000 a year.
Wow.
Okay, that's Harvard. Not everybody has to go there. Average in-state tuition is $20,000 today. Out-of-state tuition, $40,000. What are people supposed to do? A car, $3,500. This one actually shocked me. You know what the average price of a new car in 2022 is? $48,000.
Wow. Somebody here
$48,000.
Wow.
Yeah. Can you that's like a Lexus. What's going on in this country? Except it's not anymore. That's the problem. When we consider all the cost of gas, 40 cents. I checked here in Chicago. By the way, you guys are suffering, man. $4.80. I don't know what's happening here in Chicago. Across the country, $3.90. $4 on average, $4.80. If you're working class, what are you supposed to do? People are spending 10, 15, yeah, walk. It's cold as shit here, by the way. Yeah. What a miserable experience. I kid. It's a great city.
It was a little shocking when I got off the plane.
It was a little shocking, I'm not gonna lie. But when I look at this, I just think about what they took from us. The thing is, we were robbed. All of us who were in this room were robbed. Even if you were one of those who was older, the thing is that you were given the dream to pass on. That's the most basic job of a civilization. So something happened in 1971, but something went even more wrong in 2008. And there's a clip I'm about to show you guys, which I'm obsessed with because this really was the day for me, and I think for a lot of us, that everything completely changed. James, let's go ahead and play this.
Let's talk about the speed with which we are watching this market deteriorate. We're red everywhere, essentially, down by 4-5%.
We're down over 16%. Dow at the same time has fallen about 18%.
The stock market is now down 21%.
Because we're now down 43%.
What in the world is happening on Wall Street?
Two-year no yields went from 190 to 166 in the blink of an eye.
On the NASDAQ, everything and more has been completely wiped out.
It was the worst day on Wall Street since the crash of 1987.
From the financial capital of the world, the opening bell is going to ring.
You can credit James, thank you.
In 5 seconds.
The reason I played that for you guys is because right after that, guess who got bailed out? The banks. Can you imagine if they treated the crisis that I just read off with the same urgency? But they don't. It's like a slow rolling crisis. Days after that happened, the banks, which are bigger than ever today, are doing better. They got bailed out. How many people in this room got a bailout? Almost nobody. Do you know how much middle class wealth was wiped out in that year alone, 2009? Over $1 trillion. A lot of people, they went back to work by having to work 2 or 3 jobs. No health care. The cost of living skyrocketed even more to what I just read off to all of you. That really was the modern time. And look, it set all of us back. But I have no choice but to have to be somewhat optimistic, which is, look, we're in 2021 and in 2022, and things are now so bad that it is fucking undeniable. 2021 was a tipping point, And that is why I have no choice but to look at it. So I pulled some more numbers. Let's go ahead and put this next one on the screen. We've been talking about this obsessively. Look at this. The average mortgage right now across the United States, 6.75%. That's if you're lucky, okay? That's if you're lucky to have the 20% for a down payment. But it is making it so untenable that there was actually a great piece this morning about how at a certain point, this shit has to break. At a certain point, we can't just accept that the average price of a home is gonna be 10, 15, 20 times even more, that people are a blown tire away from bankruptcy. And that is why I again have to come back to the optimism of the people in this room to try and fulfill the dream that my parents came here for, that a lot of maybe your parents, your grandparents, your great-grandparents, I mean, great, we can all go all the way back, whomever. We were all promised a very basic contract. The contract was broken and a lot of us were robbed. But the choice is that we can all come together and we can actually do something about it. So thank you all very much. I really appreciate it. And that's been the theme of our show from the very beginning, Krystal.
Yeah.
Of just like, what happened here? You know, how does the country go so crazy they elect the guy from The fucking Apprentice? Like, what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, you talked about, there were a lot of breaks along the way. I mean, one of the places where you recognize that this long, multi-decade trajectory where, you know, we can talk a lot about the economic policies that led us to this place and corporations having to, you know, focus on their shareholders and not care about anything. Yeah, there's a million things we could talk about, but I mean, it really is a sort of a moral crisis. It's a core rot at the center of this country that has been infecting it for decades now. I mean, you really can think of it in those sorts of like, you know, existential and ethical terms. So I think that we can all see the way that we got there. We can see the system that set up, you know, these banks to not care that they were gambling the entire global economy, creating these financial, you know, nuclear weapons. Sorry to bring up nuclear weapons. Didn't mean to do that.
We promise, Krystal. Yeah.
And we can also see the failures in the total lack of response to ordinary people in the wake of that crisis. And then, you know, where I draw hope from is, of course, from you guys. I think we've made that clear. But there are so many cracks in this system, in this order that we've had for now more than 40 years, that nothing is inevitable about what comes next, but we all get a say in what comes next, and we can make it better. We can actually have a society that is geared towards people and not just towards corporations and profit, which is what it is now.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it and average rent is up 20%, 25%. They say a rent revolution is coming. I think it has to come. I mean, the more that these mortgage rates are rising, people are getting squeezed out. And when basic cost of living and gas is high and all more, look, it doesn't take a genius. I think one of the problems is that a lot of Americans, you know, they'll look at other countries and like, man, can you believe youth unemployment? I'm like, have you turned, you know, an eye to like, what's going on here? They'll on TV and be like, what's happening in Egypt is just so unbelievable. I'm like, yeah, you know, actually it's not that far off from what's happening here. And when you consider, like if you were to look at any other country like this and not and take the blinders off, you would know that something has to give. Now, sometimes when it gives, it ain't so pretty.
Yeah.
And what I think is that we can choose to acknowledge these facts and also still have a message of hope and to try and come together and just recognize, like in our history, it's not that far away. They took it away from us, but that means that we had it in the first place. And that means that we can get it back. And that is something that I'm always gonna have to come back to. So it was, you know, it's enraging to do these monologues and to have all this shit up here and like think about all of this. But, you know, I see a lot of people nodding across the audience. I see a lot of people who understand and can believe in that mission of making sure that we can get it back. And it doesn't have to be in such a bad way.
I mean, it's like a bunch of zombies are in charge right now, you know? I mean, their whole system is like totally morally, economically bereft and defunct. I mean, they've brought us like to the brink in every single level. Anybody who has a brain and is willing to apply it critically can see the failures in front of all of our faces that have risked all of our lives and all of like our good lives. And yet somehow they're still in charge. So that's not a situation that can last forever. I mean, it's the same thing with our political leadership. It's the same thing with our media class. It's the same thing with all of our elites, where the system underneath is so rotten and broken and so apparent to everyone. It's just a question of what it's gonna look like when it ultimately fails and they not only, you know, lose any sort of ideological purchase, but also lose their power. Now, as you said, sometimes that's not pretty. I mean, there are no guarantees in that situation. We could end up in a much scarier and worse place. But that's why it's so important for all of us to stay hopeful, stay engaged, and stay in the fight.
There we go. All right, let's play a game. Are you guys ready? Who came the furthest? Sure. All right, you want to do the hands again?
Yeah. Let's do this. All right, so first of all, let's ask the easy one. Who came from Chicago? Who's here?
There we go.
Local folks.
Woo!
All right. Love to see that. You know what? We joked about the cold, but I actually really do like Chicago. I got to walk earlier down to the lake. It's beautiful. Like, it was unreal how blue it was. I didn't really expect it to be so blue. But I actually really do like this town, so thanks for having us, guys.
All right, so Illinois. Not Chicago.
Not
okay.
Chicago,
All
other
right.
place in Illinois.
All right, so outside of Illinois, what do we got?
Oh,
my God.
boy.
You people
Wow.
are crazy. But you're
Y'all are
amazing.
wild.
I love every single one of you. Okay. Let's say Eastern United States, East Coast.
East
okay?
Coasters?
Got
We
some
got a
time.
handful.
All right, West Coast. What do we got? All right, I'm seeing a couple of hands here. All right,
got
so
some
now.
up top, too.
Oh, we can't ignore the top.
Yeah,
all right,
that's
we got a
right.
couple people up
They
there.
got
Shout
good
out to you
seats up
guys.
there, to be honest with you. I
Yeah.
walked up there earlier.
All right,
It's good up there.
all right, outside of the United States.
Oh.
Shout out.
Oh, we got
Where?
some here.
We got a couple. I see a couple of hands there.
We got
all right,
anybody-
shout it out. Where'd you come from? Italy! Cross the Atlantic!
Is that accent real? You're just putting that on.
Did anyone come farther than that gentleman? Greece! There we go!
Wow.
That guy here's youth unemployment. He knows what I'm talking about. Anybody farther than that? What do we got? Okay, Greece. Greece wins.
You know what?
All right.
I think Italy and Greece, that's pretty close.
It's a tie. It's a tie.
Let's do a
All right.
tie, yeah.
Both of you gents, make sure that you talk to our staff afterwards, and we're going to give you guys a T-shirt. It's the very least that we could possibly do for all of you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you
Thank
to
you,
all of you
seriously.
so much for coming out. It means everything to us, truly. All right, so shall we engage in some totally shameless speculation that you'll be able to instantly hold us against us when we're totally wrong on November 8th?
Your
Shall we
favorite
do that?
game.
It's my favorite thing is to make a bunch of predictions that are inevitably going to be proven wrong.
Which
So-
we always see in the comments. Yes, I do occasionally read the comments.
Yes.
No shit.
Saagar does.
wrong about that.
I really don't. My ego is too fragile. I'm sorry, guys. It's not because I don't love you. All right. So to set us up, I pulled a few of the latest polls from the key midterm swing states, specifically for the Senate. We had a poll from Trafalgar, which is right-leaning, but to be honest with you, they've been probably more accurate than the mainstream pollsters in the last election. They weren't 100%, but more accurate probably. They had in Ohio, which has been surprisingly competitive, at least in terms of the polling, they had J.D. Vance up 3. And in Pennsylvania, they have John Fetterman over Dr. Oz by 2, okay? So that one is tightened up for sure. Down in Georgia, there was just an Atlanta Journal-Constitution poll that had Warnock up by 3 on Herschel Walker. And that's about where that race has been the whole time. I looked at the latest 538 model. This is the like fancy-dancy one that has all their, not just the polls, but all their analysis and their fundamental, whatever they do. And they have right now, Democrats slightly favored to keep the Senate, 65-35, and they have Republicans strongly favored to win the House, 71-29. So that's sort of the latest data that we have, so much as you can, read into that, grains of salt all the way around. So Saagar, what do you think is gonna happen?
All right, at the risk of looking like a complete moron and having to do one of my famous "This is what I got wrong" monologues, which I do actually really enjoy
They're very
doing.
endearing when he does those,
I do really
okay?
enjoy doing them. Okay, honestly, I think it's gonna. By the way, this is descriptive analysis. I think it's gonna be a complete red wave. I think the Republicans are gonna win every single one of these seats. I'll tell you why. Look, by the way, you may not be happy about it, but I'll just say, look, at the end of the day, sometimes fundamentals are the fucking fundamentals. You have high inflation. Inflation number just came in high. You have high gas prices. What did I just read, everybody? You have general social malcontent. Is that a nice way of putting it? Of what exactly is happening across the country? You have high crime. Now, I'm not saying necessarily it's anybody's fault, but it exists, and that we know in the 1970s, certain flashback to something I just talked about, the last time that this happened, we had a major Republican victory. And then fifth, you have the party in power almost always loses. What was the data that you said? It was like they would have to outperform 1896? Like the best midterm result in like 100 years.
I don't remember.
I think it was something like that.
I know that they would have to have a historically strong midterm performance in order, especially to hold on to the House. The House, and the House, that one's pretty obvious. Like, I think that's gone for Democrats. I generally agree with your analysis, but I think it's gonna be close though. So I wouldn't call it a red wave. I think it, honestly, I'm gonna make a super specific prediction, which is a really dumb thing to do. I think we could be heading back into a situation where the fate of Senate control comes down to a Georgia runoff. So, I think it's fairly unlikely that either Walker or Warnock gets to 50%. That means you're headed to a runoff there. You look at, Nevada, I think I would probably say the Republican is more likely to win there. But I think to counterbalance that, I do think Fetterman hangs on in Pennsylvania. I think, the Ohio polls, I still think are sort of fake. I don't think that one's going to be as close as people think. Wisconsin, another Democratic hope, with Ron Johnson there, that seems to already have sort of collapsed for them. So I basically think you keep status quo in a lot of these. You win, Fetterman wins in Pennsylvania. The lady, Catherine Cortez Masto in Nevada, loses, and then control of the Senate comes down to Georgia runoff once again. So that's kind of what I'm thinking is like a weird election where it's not really a wave. And I'll tell you why I think that. And again, guys, who knows, okay? I also just can't imagine a situation where you have such bad numbers on the economy and right track, wrong track, and then the party in power does affirmatively well. Now, I do think Republicans have handicapped themselves, with all sorts of things, like the abortion positions are definitely a detriment for them. The extremism on that issue has very much damaged their candidates. They picked a bunch of bad candidates. Some of those things weigh them down so they won't have the wave in the Senate that I think they could have absent those things. But you gotta think about this. Like, you're the party in power. People are overwhelmingly telling you the economy is shit, and you don't even have an economic message. Like, they're not even running on an economic message. That is political malpractice. It's insanity. Now, I'm not saying the Republicans are offering solutions. They're not. They're not even talking really about the economy either. They're all in on crime. Democrats are all in on abortion. And meanwhile, the issue that 80% of the country says is their number one issue, none of these assholes have anything to say about it? It's insane.
God bless America.
It really is insane. But if you're the Democrats and you're the party in power, that means you're de facto ceding that issue to the Republicans. I actually just saw there's a Democratic pollster. He's sort of famed. He's very famous for his working class polling in particular. His name's Stan Greenberg. And he did a bunch of polling recently, and he's really sounding the alarm. This is a Democrat. And Bernie Sanders said similar things recently. He's like, you have to run on the economy. If you don't, you're going to lose. It's really super basic. So now, like I said, I do think Republicans have sort of shot themselves in the foot in a few ways. So that's why I don't think it's going to be overwhelmingly red wave. But in general, bad year for Democrats, and comes down to a kind of a coin flip in Georgia. That's my prediction today.
And if you put the median,
could change tomorrow, but that's how I feel today.
I think you're right, Chris.
Yeah.
I take all of that. I just think, and I hate to say it, but not all people are as enlightened as those in this room. And at the end of the day, for a lot of people, it's just very simple. Like, I'm voting against the trend that I see, even if a guy literally can't speak in Georgia and says some interesting things. In fact, we had something we were going to play for all of you, and it was so indecipherable that I was like, I can't even do this.
So incomprehensible.
Yeah. I'm not going to torture them. And
we just can't. Yeah.
But look, that's just how it goes sometimes. And again, I don't want it to work that way. And if anything, again, just to come back to the message is that we got to give some people something else to that 80%. If we could actually argue about what to do about inflation, if we could actually argue about how to meaningfully bring down gas without just dunks against each other, we would be in a hell of a lot better place. But instead, it's all just, even the crime thing. I'm not going to deny, obviously, but I just came to Chicago today and I get these stupid comments, every time everyone's like, oh my God, don't get shot in Chicago. It's a beautiful city, okay? It's a beautiful fucking city. Are there problems? Yeah, there are problems. Right. But Just because you're, somewhere else, you don't need to go dunk on a bunch of people. Like, we're all living our fucking lives. And like, that's the point is that instead of using it as a dunk, just be like, thank God I don't live in this shithole. It's like, well, how about we make it better? How about we make it better for all the people who live here?
It's a great city. Yeah, I mean, to me, it says everything about our political system that you have this election where the economy is so critical, so important, and neither party has anything to say. They're just all in on culture, all in on, and you know what, I care about these. I'm not saying that like abortion and crime aren't important, but there is an issue that literally everyone is saying, I really care about this, nothing to say. Kind of, it's the silence speaks volumes ultimately.
Certainly. All right, let's break some of the silence in here.
Yes,
we have a very fun
indeed.
game for everybody.
We spent a long time coming up with this one, guys, and it was fun. I hope you're gonna enjoy it as much as we enjoyed putting it together.
It was a chef's kiss.
Trips down memory lane here.
And I'm gonna be honest, if you don't all get like over 100% on this quiz, I'm gonna be very disappointed in you all. In everyone. All right, James, let's go to number one,
all right,
and let's
so,
play it for
hold
the
on,
people.
you gotta tell them what the game is first.
Yes.
So basically, we pulled a bunch of, I guess I would say, infamous clips of famous political and media figures. And you guys we're gonna play the audio, and then wait for the audio to play so we can hear the whole thing. And then we just want you to shout out who you think it is. And again, I don't think it's a very, there's like one or two that are a little tricky.
Yeah.
Most of them are fairly
faith.
obvious, but you'll enjoy it.
I have faith in the people. All right, let's do it, James.
First one.
And so many of you know so much about this as well, and you're committed. And I want to thank all of you here for including bipartisan elected officials like Representative Governor, Senator Braun, Senator Booker, Representative Jackie, are you here? Where's Jackie?
Jackie.
For those who aren't aware,
brutal.
Jackie is dead and has been for a while.
Yeah.
God.
He sent out condolences, but somehow it didn't.
The worst part about that
stick.
one is when the White House press secretary couldn't just admit that he had missed.
Oh, that was.
She was like,
did you
"Oh,
guys see that? Oh, it was unbelievable.
It was so
She's like, Jackie was top of mind, and that's why he said that. And of course, he knew. It's like, come, just take the L. Like, you have no other choice. Just take the L. Admit he forgot. Like, okay.
He's been saying
I'll
stupid
move
shit
on.
for 40 years. Just say that it's like a Biden
It's
thing.
just who he is. All right. He says dumb shit.
Doesn't necessarily have to be old age. They just won't give it up. And it's, oh my God, that was such a horrific moment. All right.
Yes, indeed.
What's the next one, Krystal? All right.
Go ahead, James. Play the next one.
When you look back, did Democrats fail, past Democratic presidents, congressional leaders, to not codify Roe v. Wade over the past 5 decades?
I think that, to be very honest with you, I do believe that we should have rightly believed, but we certainly believe that certain issues are just settled. Certain issues are just settled.
Clearly we're not.
No, that's right, and that's why.
All right. That's enough. That's enough.
What does that even mean? What does it mean?
So bad.
How did this woman end up our vice president?
The shining future of the Democratic Party, everyone, right there. Political genius. That was our vice president, in case you guys didn't get it. I think you probably got it.
I can't get over it. That every time I see her, it's like she gets worse every time she has to give.
I'm like, wait,
an
you
interview.
all watched her in the Democratic primary. You knew that she couldn't even make it to the voting because her own state was going to vote against her, and you're still like, that's the one. Yeah, that's the one.
Andrew Yang was
Perfect.
beating her in polls in her own home state. That's how fucking insane that was. And then Biden's like, you know what? Let's pick this lady.
Yeah, this is the one.
Sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this next one I have been unable to listen to since we picked it just because it is so absurd, amazing, and classic in so many different ways. James, play it for the people.
So what would you do right now in Ukraine if you were the president?
Putin uses the N-word. I call it the N-word. He uses the N-word, the nuclear word, all the time. That's a no-no.
All right, that's good. That's enough. That's enough, James.
Poor choice of words.
Only him. Of course, he had to. Couldn't resist.
That one, it just gets me every single time. It's like, what is going through your brain that you think that's an appropriate use? in a diplomatic situation.
Right. Serious diplomacy.
We're
Gotta be
contemplating
really,
the end of the world.
really careful with our language here. I'm going to go with the N-word. That's what I'm going to go with. Yeah.
We're talking about annihilation of the human race. And this guy was the president and could be the next one.
I don't know, guys. I don't know.
When I think about it, I just can't.
I guess we broke our promise again on nuclear
God.
Armageddon.
I'm
sorry, guys.
I'm sorry,
Forgot
everyone.
about that one.
We just have to cry sometimes.
All right, James, who do we have next?
As a candidate, you have talked about many of your topics and your
Oh, this is a
plans,
classic.
what you plan to do,
This is
what
a
you intend
classic.
to do on many different topics. But I would like to know, if you were only permitted to accomplish one thing when president, what specifically would it be?
Just one.
Just one.
Wow. Well, let me say this. It's not a sizzling, glamorous issue, but the shape of our democracy is the issue that affects every other issue.
Smart.
Pete.
Can you spell it? Can you spell who?
Man doing a very bad Obama impression. That's who that was.
For those who aren't aware, that's the person who's responsible for the clusterfuck of the airlines
Yes,
right now,
indeed.
Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg. Thank you, Mayor Pete, for the canceled flights and for,
He would fix it, but he's too busy going to like photo ops and ribbon cuttings for his own political future, and also he just doesn't really give a shit. So there we go.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Great for all the people who, just need travel.
Remember when Biden actually mocked him in a hilarious way in the primary
Yes.
for like how he knew nothing about infrastructure, and he ran this ad that was like making fun of Pete for his biggest infrastructure project being putting lights on a bridge and stuff. And then he turns around and makes him Secretary of Transportation. It's like, the fuck?
What are you doing, bro?
Like, sometimes it actually, like, I know a lot of this. This is another one of these things that we just like take for granted. Like, oh, of course you're just gonna give out jobs out of political favors and like patronage. But sometimes you need someone who actually knows what the fuck they're doing in these positions. And yeah.
What a shocking
Clearly,
idea.
that man was not Pete. He's still
Clearly
thinking
the
about the shape of our democracy.
The mayor of South Bend is now in charge of $1 trillion
Right.
of giving out money to that fucking
That's
airport.
right.
Doesn't work.
That's
and he
right.
doesn't have a thing to say about it. Amazing. All right, next is just an absolute all-time classic. I'm gonna be very disappointed in all of you. If you don't get it, play it for the people.
Thought I'd do some grocery shopping. I'm at Wegner's.
Oh.
And my
Wegner's.
wife wants some
Wegner's.
vegetables for crudité. Right? So here's a broccoli.
Crudité.
That's $2. Not a ton of broccoli there. There's some asparagus. That's $4. Yep. And carrots. That's $4 more. That's $10 of vegetables there. And then we need some guacamole. That's
Of course.
$4 more.
Gotta have asparagus and guacamole,
She
right?
loves salsa. Yeah, salsa there. $6. Must be a shortage of salsa. Guys, that's $20 for crudité. This doesn't include the tequila.
Doesn't include the,
That's
doesn't
outrageous.
even conclude
Where's
the
that Joe Biden
tequila.
thing?
What the hell?
Crudité.
I have seriously analyzed that like it's the Zapruder film. I'm so obsessed with it. Everything about it. He carries his vegetables around in the grocery store like some sort of a psycho. He's putting together asparagus and salsa and guacamole, and then he's like, and that's not even with the tequila. What are you doing? What is going on in your household? I don't know. Crudité.
I mean, I don't even think crudité is a New Jersey thing. I just think it means being an out-of-touch rich prick.
Yes.
Also,
Wegner's.
Didn't you point this out? Yeah, first of all, Wegner's. For those who don't know, like there's a Wegmans and there's a Redner's, and he somehow was able to mix both. Okay, interesting. Also, have we never heard of those pre-bought veggie platters that are at the store? They're like $9.99,
They're right there.
my dude.
They're right there.
It's like we're all good.
And by the way, no one calls them crudité, FYI. The thing I really learned from that video, which I mentioned on the show, is it really demonstrates Oz's staff fucking hates him. Because there is no way, if you're working for a candidate you actually like, there is no way you ever allow that to see the light of day. They were like, all right, you're happy with it, boss. Here you go. I'm putting it out on the Twitter account now.
Send tweet.
Yeah.
Can't even imagine. All
Some
right.
staffer really enjoyed that.
A very good one for the next. I think you guys will enjoy it. Go ahead, James.
I'm kind of neutral on it. Like, if you want only millionaires and billionaires to run for Congress, then keep making sure that we can't raise our pay, that we can't get a housing stipend, that we have to just spend or pay rent in two different places. That's fine. If you want to, if that's what you want to support, but just keep in mind that no one will run for Congress because you have no way to better yourself.
No way to better yourself.
No way
guys.
to better yourself.
I mean, do you think of these poor members of Congress only making hundreds of thousands of dollars? So sad. They're not able to better themselves from their public service, Saagar. I mean, your heart just goes out to them.
Marshall said this in our last live show where he's like, he took the issue of congressional pay and then used it as justification on why he should be allowed to trade Boeing stocks while he sits on the House Armed Services Committee.
Yeah.
The best part is, if you listen to the rest of that interview, the guy, to his credit, I think he was like a right-wing Turning Point guy, and he's like, well, hold on a second, Congressman. He's like, have you ever, what did you do? And he goes, yeah, I just did, what any guy does. He just put a couple $1,000s in an E-Trade account, and I bought some Boeing stock. And he's like, well, first of all, I don't think that's what any guy does. But second, he's like, have you ever met with anyone at Boeing? And he's like, well,
maybe my staff has. Come on, bro. Come on.
It's just outrageous.
And he is one of the real offenders on this issue as well. But this is an area where, it is true bipartisan rot. And the response to it, as a result, has also been really encouragingly bipartisan. Democrats can be like, Crenshaw is disgusting. Republicans would be like Nancy Pelosi and her, husband when he's getting a DUI outside their private vineyard in between.
Who amongst us?
In between his corrupt trades is disgusting. And so, we all came together and we're like, we got to fucking do something about this. Maybe one day they will.
In that vein, play the next one. That was a great idea. I like that.
What was that one?
Congressional dormitories. We got that shout out at the last show. It's actually a great idea.
I love
Fantastic
that idea.
Go ahead, James.
We have a responsibility to report in the stock.
Speaking of.
On the stock, but I'm not familiar with that 5-month review, but if people aren't reporting, they should be. Yeah. Because this is a free market and people, we are a free market economy. They should be able to participate in that.
Free market economy, guys.
Free market economy.
What's wrong with that?
Corruption is the free market. It's actually giving something a little bit away there.
Yeah, true. It's revealing about the whole system.
That's why I play those back to back. It's a bipartisan problem. I mean, and just look at this is what they're willing to say in public on a hot mic. What is going on behind these rooms? I remember actually, Krystal, one of the biggest first monologues I really did that popped at Rising was about how, you guys remember to the 2008 AIG, got a $1 trillion bailout. They threw a 10-year bailout anniversary party I shit you not, in the committee room where they were bailed out.
I remember
at the House of Financial Services. Bipartisan, they had bailout specialty cocktails that were catered by waiters. Bipartisan members of Congress both attended, and they didn't even hide it. They put photos out and published it because they didn't think anybody would say, this is fucking crazy.
So brazen. Yeah. They're just so used to getting away with it. It doesn't even occur to them to be ashamed. So at the very least, we can make these people ashamed again. At the very least, we can do that.
Make politicians feel shame again.
Yes. Non-violently, no violence, but yes, make them feel shame.
All right, next one.
What might lie ahead? Jen, thanks for coming on Reliable Sources.
My pleasure.
Busy summer ahead, infrastructure, election reform. What does the press get wrong when covering Biden's agenda?
What are we doing wrong, Jen Psaki? Tell us, Queen, what we're doing wrong. Stelter, yes.
Thank you.
Brian Stelter.
Can you imagine inviting the chief propagandist of the United States onto your show and then asking
It's just
them,
like a literal statement of her job.
Right.
That's what she does.
It's not, again, nothing against her. Sarah Sanders was too, anybody who's held that job. And then asking them the question, what are we not doing? What are we doing wrong? What can the media do better in servicing you?
How can we better serve you, my liege? I mean, that was another very revealing moment. Also, the thing that always cracked me up about that guy is the way that he would sit on air, so uncomfortable. Just relax, dude. It's okay. You don't have to be all puffed up like this. Anyway, RIP is no longer at CNN, so it's a sad story. We won't get to dunk on him quite as much.
I miss him.
He'll
I'm going to be
reemerge.
honest.
Where didn't he go? Oh, he went to Harvard.
Yeah, that's right. As
He
they all
landed
do.
at Harvard. He's good, guys. Don't worry. Don't shed a tear for Brian Stelter. He is just fine.
That's the
folks.
thing. These
He
people
is
can
just
never
fine.
lose. Even you can get canceled from your historically low-rated show, which literally did better when you were on vacation. You can still get hired by Harvard University.
That's
what
right.
an amazing success story in this country.
The
All right.
meritocracy in full effect here in America.
Speaking of, James, hit it.
I understand. This is the normal swab I'm holding up here now, and for everybody at home. A very valuable object. There's only one company in the entire country that makes these up in Maine. All right, here's the swab. Is it true that this was the swab that the nurse was actually using on you?
All right.
And that
All right. Chris Cuomo.
Chris Cuomo.
Now, the bad news is Cuomo was also fired from CNN, so we also can't tell. But the good news is he has a new, even more low-rated, if that's the right way to say that, show that is equally terrible. So we still have potential for good content from him.
Well, we got
So,
a little
it's
bit. They
promising.
actually, you guys will love this.
He's got
they
a podcast too, right?
Yes, they bought ads that were placed on the Breaking Points channel. So they thought that you fine people might watch a YouTube ad for 15 seconds
Well,
to
they
go
s-
check out this
I think
jackass on his new show.
Probably what they saw. They're like, these are the only people that bought the CNN Plus NFT. They must be big fans. They must love us. Their audience probably loves us too.
I have a sad update on that. CNN actually is shutting down its NFT vault. However, the Breaking Points community retains ownership of the historic moment on which they launched, which they called the biggest moment in CNN history, which actually they were correct about, but not for the reasons that they thought, of the first moments of CNN Plus, which was canceled in 2 days after spending $300 million.
And inshallah, the rest of the network will go the way of CNN Plus.
There we go. All right, next one. This is a great one.
Michael, Joe Biden said yesterday that his campaign is Scranton versus Park Avenue. Why is he going with this divide and conquer approach? That's Trump's thing. What about a message for all Americans? I don't live on Park Avenue, but I live pretty close to it. And you know how I got there? Working my butt off. He doesn't.
Will somebody not think of the people who live on Park
Who
Avenue?
live, not on Park, but pretty darn close. Do you guys know? You remember that one? Stephanie Roll. I love that clip. I have it memorized. I could listen to it over and over again. You know, I don't live on Park Avenue, but I live pretty close. And you know how I got there? Working my butt off. I mean, of all the things, like MSNBC slavishly slobbered all over Joe Biden the entirety of his presidential campaign. And this is the thing you criticize when he said like one mildly populist thing. And you're like, this is where I draw the line. This is too far. Class warfare. Great moment. Great moment in television
and
history.
Look, we are equal opportunists here. We hate most of the mainstream media. So, James, in that vein, next one.
You were talking about the farmers, and farmers here, many of them are here on work visas. Many families here, including mine, we have au pairs, and we rely on them. I go to work at 3 o'clock in the morning, so I need her there, and I need her in my house so that she can help me with my daughter. So many families rely on childcare from other countries. These au pairs come here on work visas. They have to go back to their country.
Will someone not... Go, who's got it?
You
Can
guys
somebody
got
say
this. This one is a little challenging.
That's it, Ainsley Earhart.
You got
Congratulations
it. Yes,
from Fox News.
Fox and Friends. Who will think of the poor multimillionaire Fox News host? And this was, the context here was, we pulled this one back for when we were at Rising because it was such a great one. This was the beginning of COVID, when the whole country was shutting down and people were terrified. Nobody knew anything about this thing and whether they're gonna be alive or dead or whatever. And she's like, I'm really worried about my au pair. I just don't know. Jesus Christ, lady.
Who's going to take care
God.
of my kids as I make millions of dollars? Who amongst us can't relate to
Ainsley,
these
I
stories?
think you're going to be able to figure it out, sweetheart. That's just my guess here.
All right,
Amazing.
And the final one, this is a fun one. Go ahead, James.
Breaking Points with Krystal and Saagar, who's my favorite show. One of
They're
the
great.
One of the best points about it is there's no one running that but them. You're getting objective information from people that you trust. They're gathering up everything they can find and they can give an assessment based on their understanding of these issues, and then they debate it and they talk about it and they go over it back and forth. People chose them. People know they can trust them, so they follow them.
That man is far too kind. Shout out to Joe Rogan. We never would be here without him. We truly owe him so much. And so, look, I mean, one of the things I love is he got it. He got who we were. And that's really what we just wanted to show you, which is, look, there's a lot of other assholes on cable. A lot of them are controlled by people. We get shit wrong all the time, but at least it's us who are the ones who are getting it wrong.
Nobody's pulling our strings behind the scenes. When we get shit wrong, it's just because of us. And we'll admit it, too. That's the other piece. And I hope that's what you all take from the show, too, is like, we're genuinely trying to sort through the issues as best we can. We really tried to set it up so that we wouldn't be influenced, certainly not by any corporations. I mean, you guys are the thing that makes it work. So ultimately, we're accountable to you. And the other thing that, sometimes independent media can also suffer from like audience capture, where they're just telling their increasingly niche audience what they want to hear. And I think we've tried to intentionally have an audience that is truly across the ideological gamut, people who want to hear things that maybe sometimes they disagree with or piss them off or whatever. But for some reason, you all still show up. So we love you for it. That's the bottom line. We absolutely love you for it.
It can work. All right, James, hit the next one. News of the day. I was like, all right, we got to find something lighthearted here. Everything's about Ukraine. Nukes. Digging deeper. I'm like, what can we do? And so this is what we settled on, and it gets very much to this. And look, no disrespect, but the ratings just came out for CNN's Jake Tapper, his brand new show. It launched 2 nights ago to great aplomb.
Big
I'm sure some of you saw.
primetime move.
Primetime move, 9
him.
p.m. slot. This is the coveted slot in all of cable. And this isn't just about Jake. This is about the entire medium. So I thought I would read to you some of the numbers that have come in from this. And just so you guys know, that he had an interview with the President of the United States. All right, this used to be one of those flagship things. How many people decided to tune in? Well, okay. So it was more than 1 million less than Sean Hannity's Fox News. It was half of MSNBC. But my personal favorite is when you actually dig into what the advertisers over there actually care about. Young people. So actually, shout out if you're between 25 and 54. Go ahead. All right. So a shit ton of the people here.
Most of the audience,
Shit ton of the people here.
No disrespect to anybody over or below that, by the way.
No, or below, above, whatever. It's all good. We welcome any and all stripes. He got just 211,000 people in that demographic. So it means
for an interview with the President of the United States in prime time.
With the President. And the crazy thing is, he actually beat MSNBC, which had over 2.5 million people watching their show, that had only 144,000 people.
Oof.
What's so insane is that, look, I'm not gonna claim that we're bigger than these people, but Breaking Points, 95% of our audience is in that key demographic, and we get well over 1 million for every single show that we do. And it's not about us being, look, they are powerful in so many different ways, but the point is that this is something to be celebrated, not just as a dunk on Jake, but about the entire medium and artifice, the structure that kept a lot of us down, that covered for a lot of the people who robbed us and what I was talking about earlier. It's falling apart. I saw a lot of you guys really appreciated what we were talking about late night. And again, no disrespect, Trevor Noah, but that guy lost 1 million viewers in 7 years. 1 million. How does something like that even get propped up? Colbert is the same. He has broadcast TV, Krystal, which is a genuine government monopoly, and is losing to fucking Greg Gutfield on Fox News.
I mean, these are zombie outlets with a zombie business model. I mean, that doesn't mean they're not going to continue for a long time. But CNN and MSNBC in particular, their new executives, and both of them have new executives in charge, they are overtly putting them into a managed decline.
Yes.
I mean, over at CNN, with the move of Jake Tapper, and they put Don Lemon in the morning, and they moved John Berman somewhere else. Like, they're just literally shifting deck chairs on the Titanic. They're not trying anything. Their big play was CNN Plus, and we all saw how that went, right? So ultimately, they've just decided, all right, we're gonna try to cut down the budget. We're not going for any big splashy place. We're not trying to do the new thing. We're just gonna try to hold on to the increasingly small scraps of what we've got left. And you have this legacy model where advertisers and the cable companies still pay them more than what they're actually getting is actually worth. That'll persist for some amount of time. They have, of course, tons of elite caching, incredibly powerful in terms of all of that. But they're in managed decline. Over at MSNBC, Rachel Maddow, the quarterback of the network, right? Whatever you think of her, and we certainly have lots of thoughts on her, she was the only person there who actually could pull in an audience. They didn't even try to replace her. They brought in Alice Wagner, who actually was at MSNBC back when I was at MSNBC. And they know that her show there did not perform. There's a reason that she got canceled from the network before. So to fill in for their big primetime quarterback, they put in someone that they know is a proven loser. That's what managed decline looks like. They can pay her a lot less. She doesn't mind being big-footed when they can shove Rachel back in or for other, big network coverage events. It's pretty incredible when you realize that even they know their ship is sinking. So this is why we believe so passionately in what we're building here, because we think this is the beginning of something. And if we can have something that is true and honest and really tries to grapple with the issues that are facing the country and the world in a serious way and have some fun while we're at it, try to every day a little bit, how much of a better place would the country be in if we just came at it from that and not everything corrupted by corporations and profit and fucking big pharma ad every time you turn around.
The single biggest compliment that we get is when I hear from people and they're like, you changed my relationship with my dad, like your show. You changed my relationship with my relatives who I thought differently from, because it was one of those things where they were just glued to Fox, glued to MSNBC. The dining table would turn into a shouting match. And it's the acrimony, the bitterness that it would cause in people's households was genuinely ripping and tearing people apart. And you multiply that by millions, and that's how we got here. And the whole point is that, look, it's not just about breaking points, it's about independence. It's about the fact that the country can change for the better. It's just, the revolution is literally here. It just doesn't feel like it yet. And it will come. It will come very, very slowly. It can feel for people like us who are enlightened now. But at a certain point, the zombie, it basically has to fall. Like somebody's got to shoot it in the head with a shotgun. I don't know who that person is going to be.
Not literally, guys.
Yeah, not literally.
Cover our ass here.
Some asshole, some Media Matters person is going to clip that and say that. And fuck you, for the record.
By the way, yes,
okay.
also. Yes, also that.
All right.
All right, so we're experimenting with something new here, guys. So bear with us. But we really wanted to give you guys a chance to help to program the show. So we picked 3 topics that you can choose from. And Saagar, I'll let you set it up because I think there's a certain order or whatever.
So this is far more complicated than it should be. However, you have to text breaking points in all caps, 111, one word, to the number in front of you, 22333. After you do so and join our session, you can then choose A, B, and C. And I will be narrating the results as they come in.
Yes.
All right.
So first, step 1, get out your phone.
Yes.
Get out your phone. Step 2, go to the text thing. Okay. Step 3, this is how I would need it explained to me. That's why I'm doing it this way, okay? Step 3, put this number here, 22333, in the who it's going to line.
Okay.
Then what you're going to type in the text is what? Breaking points?
Breaking points, all caps, 111. No spaces.
No spaces.
All one word. All right,
Get
enough.
out your phone.
Enough. All right, breaking points, 111, all caps, to the number in front of you, and then A, B, or C. Okay, currently we have B is winning by 67%.
Some
now we're at
people,
50-50.
Wait, and let me explain. So economy, we're going to talk a little bit about the latest numbers, IMF warning, Elon Musk. We're talking about Starlink, not Twitter. The Starlink thing is what we're thinking about with Musk.
We can talk about Twitter too if you want.
Yeah, we get whatever. Yeah. If you want us to talk about that, we can do that.
Elon
too.
is actually winning right now, 46%, 48%.
And number 3 is just the presidential primary 2024 horse race.
We can be
Biden
terribly
gonna
wrong
be
again.
alive and sentient? Is Trump going to be in prison?
If you want to hear a crazy prediction, we can do C. If you want to talk about Elon, we could do B. A. All right, so A is currently 18%. B, 43. C is inching up, 39. It's 41. A is now inching up. I feel like an auctioneer. Okay, Elon is going up, 42%. 39% for C.
I'm just impressed.
19% for A.
That the tech is working.
C is edging out.
C is surging.
C is edging it out.
C is surging.
41-40. People, put your votes in.
Last
Put your
chance,
votes
guys.
in. We got hundreds and hundreds of votes that are coming in. Okay. 41, 40, 40, 40. All right, we're going to go with C. C by a very short margin. 42%, 39%, and 19%. Thank you all so much.
Yes,
wow,
I
look
gotta
at
be
that,
honest, I
technology.
didn't really feel like talking about Elon Musk, so. Again, so thank you. Okay, so here's the little news peg we'll use as an excuse to get into this 2024 situation. Then Saagar, I'll kick it over to you. All right, there were a bunch of debates this week. I don't know if you guys watch any of them for the key Senate races. And one of them was Tim Ryan versus J.D. Vance. It's this week or last week, I don't remember. Anyway, in that debate, Tim Ryan was actually asked if he wanted Joe Biden to run for president, and he was very clear. He was like, no. I mean, I think for Tim, not to get too much into this, but for him, he sees Ohio, it's more of a red state at this point. He feels like there's political calculation made here to distance himself from Biden. His critique is just like, we need generational change, which I always think is sort of bullshit, even though I understand people's concerns with his age, but it contains no content. But anyway, the reason I think this is notable is because he's not the first one. There have been a bunch of Democrats who have, even though Biden's the incumbent and even though he's, supposedly their guy, who have blatantly said they don't want him to run again. And then you also have polls that routinely say, even if you just are asking Democrats, a overwhelming majority of Democrats say, we don't want him again. And what's interesting is, on the Republican side, there's some discontent with Trump, but overwhelmingly, he still has control of that party. So you have the media that is mostly talking about, is DeSantis going to catch up to Trump and what's going on there? And I'm looking around, I'm like, the one over here on the Democrat side is the one that's actually more vulnerable. So anyway, that's how I'll set up the 2024 debate. What do you think, Saagar, is going to happen?
I think the craziest thing is that despite all of that, when 70-some% of the Dems don't want you to run, who are they going to pick? You listen to the clips that we played. We're going to play fake Obama, Pete Buttigieg. Like, we're going to pick Kamala.
Or fake Obama, Beto. Or fake Obama, Cory Booker.
Yeah, it's like, how many of these fake... Why do they all have to speak the same? Have you guys noticed that? It's completely crazy. It's like, just be a real person.
No,
and
they can't do that.
That's way too tall of an order. They're literally fake. And when you consider the bench, you're like, well, maybe he, has trouble stringing a sentence together and so much more. But he at least, doesn't seem 100% as full of shit as the rest of these people. And that's all they can muster. And the craziest thing is, okay, on the Republican side, I'm sure, whatever you think of Ron DeSantis, all of that, all you have to do is go and look at a poll. It's like 51, 52% people who are for Trump. Every time he gets indicted or closer to indictment, his numbers literally go up in the Republican Party. And you're like, well, I think that we should probably just look at this. And yet, Paul Ryan, former Speaker of the House, great American, right? He did a lot of good for us. Okay.
That tax cut for rich people and corporations.
Well,
that
fantastic.
That was
Thank you,
wonderful.
Paul.
Thank you, Paul Ryan.
So Paul was just asked this 2 days ago, and he said the 2024 Republican nominee will not be Donald Trump. It will either be Ron DeSantis, it will either be Tim Scott, or it will be Newt Gingrich.
What?
And I was like...
What? That's a curveball. I did not see that one coming.
If I see some shit like that, I'm like, all right, it's just gonna be Trump. It's like after all of this, I lived through the same fucking story in 2016.
It's a lot of wish casting.
And look,
a lot
here's
of
the
wish
thing.
casting.
Look, again, whatever you think of Trump, and look, maybe he actually will get indicted, and that'll change all of this up. Right now, Joe Biden's approval rating in Georgia is 31%. No matter who wins down there. What's his approval rating in Pennsylvania? It's like 35%. Wisconsin, I heard it's an important state. Yeah, nearby. Guess what? It's like 38%. He's under 40 or 50.
But this is the thing that's so crazy is we are very likely to end up with the Joe Biden-Donald Trump rematch. There are no guarantees, but it's very likely at this point. And both of them have approval ratings that look like this. Like
that's
you
the
ask the
craziest part.
country and they're like, no, we don't want either of these people. And then it's like, well, here you go. Here they are again. Good luck. Enjoy your choices in our great democracy.
So sadly, I think that's what our failed system is going to produce. I think it's going to give us Joe Biden and Donald Trump again. And honestly, look, Joe Biden came, 41,000 votes away from even losing. And a lot of people don't actually even consider how small the margins in Georgia, in Arizona even were. Like, all it takes is a little roll of the dice and things go completely different.
If Trump had actually leaned into getting his people to mail in vote, he probably would have won.
Oh, 100%.
Just that
I have
one,
no question.
just that one change, it almost definitely would have changed the result in Georgia. I used to know the numbers off the top of our head. If you guys have been watching for a while, you probably heard us talk about this a lot. But there were a lot of Republican primary voters who voted in the primary by mail and then just didn't vote in the general election because there had been so much like, oh, mail-in ballots and you got to vote in person, whatever, and they just didn't show up. Just that margin alone would have changed the result in the state of Georgia. So yeah, it was that close. And I guess in terms of what I think, I suspect your prediction is the most likely outcome. And obviously this is a real fool's errand because this is an eternity in politics we're talking about. We're facing down some incredibly significant global situations, I'll just say, without bringing up the N-word again. That's definitely gonna get clipped out of context. Anyway, it was nice knowing you guys before I got canceled. Anyway, you're gonna have all kinds of things happen, but I do think that's the most likely outcome. But if you were gonna switch out one of these people, I think Joe Biden is more vulnerable. And especially, I mean, this is just according to the numbers. This is no like political genius. This is just based on the numbers of his standing in the Democratic Party versus Trump standing in the Republican Party. Joe Biden has a much weaker position, even though he is the incumbent. Now, I don't think any established Democratic politician would have the balls to challenge him, but I think you could have an outsider challenge him, and I think they'd have a shot. Especially, well, Bernie has already said he's not gonna run if his friend Joe is running, which, you know.
We'll see.
Marianne, I like that suggestion personally. Not crystal ball. Thank you, though. It's very flattering.
We have better things to do with you fine people.
But let me just say this, though. I think a lot depends on how the midterms do go. Because Biden's whole thing was the whole reason he romped ultimately in the Democratic primaries because people were persuaded this was the guy that could beat Trump. Well, if you have an economy that's shit, an approval rating that's in the tank, and you get shellacked in the midterms, how strong is your case gonna be that you're the guy that could beat Trump again? That's where I think a real vulnerability comes in. And then the other thing that I think is a glaring vulnerability is what happens in Ukraine, because there is increasing public dismay and dissatisfaction, unease with the endless direction of the war there. So I think that's a wide open potential issue and problem for him as well. So if I had to bet on one side of the Trump-Biden equation changing, I think Biden is much more vulnerable.
No, I think look, he's 79 years old and anything can happen. And the crazy thing is Trump is like 77 years old. So it's the same thing.
Not a spring chicken.
And by the way, I've met the man. He's wide. He's a wide gentleman. That's the best way.
Those suits really do a lot for him.
They do a crazy amount for him. I remember seeing him in the Oval Office. I'm like, this guy's fucking huge. I'm like, does not come across.
Well, you see him like on the golf course and you're like, whoa.
Yeah, that's when you really see it.
Yeah.
Ooh, feel bad for people.
Anyway,
okay.
I digress.
All right, so we're gonna end. Krystal, sorry, your script for our favorite time of the week.
Oh, yes. It's our favorite time of the week again when we get to answer a few of your questions. Saagar, what is up first?
Okay, so we got a couple of premium member questions here. Number one, so we picked lighthearted ones. Lighthearted question, long-time listener, recent premium supporter. I'm curious, where do you, Krystal and Saagar, but mostly Krystal, get your outfits for the shows? Y'all always look great. Thank you very much. Which I think, for better or for worse, is actually quite important in presenting a polished, serious forum for talking about important
I just want you to know, I did not pick this question. I just want you to know that. It's way too flattering. So most of my clothes I actually don't own. I rent from Rent the Runway. So it's like, it makes me feel good because it's in theory more environmentally sound or whatever, but I just don't need all that stuff, clothes in my closet. So most of what I wear on the show is Rent the Runway. I will say I have started shopping from this other company called Reformation, which is like a little bit on the pricey side, but this dress is from there, for example. But they also sort of, soothe my conscience by claiming that they're more environmentally friendly. I don't know if it's really true or not.
Even we fall for the marketing
But I do like their clothes, so there you go.
No, I actually thought the question was interesting because sometimes we'll get stuff which is like, and this gets to like being a serious forum, which is one of the things that we found that was so important to so many of you was putting on a show that you felt like you could send to your parents and that they could empathize with. They're like, oh, this isn't just a guy in his basement. This is somebody who speaks my politics or a woman. And they look the part. And by looking that part, by the way, I don't necessarily want to wear this all the time. But
yes, you do. Don't lie.
Okay,
yes, you do. He loves it.
What can I say? I fucking like it.
Even I still get weirded when Saagar was like in a sweatshirt earlier, and I was like, this feels weird.
But we found that. It's like that. I thought it was important for us to acknowledge, like, we hear you guys. Like, we hear and understand, like, how important it is to have good production value and more. So you don't feel crazy, and that you can have something that you can share with people, and they're not going to dismiss it. They're like, oh, this is just some, whatever, some guy in his basement.
To be honest with you, it was something we sort of stumbled into at Rising. That was the form. They had this sort of, even before Saagar came in the previous iteration, they had this sort of like cable newsy feeling format, and they brought in all these producers from cable news and whatever. And so it was not starting the show. I didn't necessarily expect that would be such an important component. But it immediately became clear, based on the feedback we were getting, that actually was a really important component. Because you could have, we both have like anchor newsy vibes and like cheery and our little like well-dressed whatever and a real set behind us. And to have that aesthetic and vibe, but then have like real news and anti-establishment perspectives, it just felt like there was nothing else that was quite like it out there. And so, the feedback we got was, this is helping me to introduce my politics to my family member. And there is a lot to be said about, the way that first impression and whether or not people take it seriously based on the presentation. So as you know, and this goes back to like thanking you guys for making this all possible, it's not inexpensive to do that. It's pretty expensive to be able to have a set and have it look real and mainstream and all those things. And so, one of the things that we really wanted to bring to Breaking Points was that same aesthetic, like news aesthetic. And you all, by showing up for us, you made that possible when it was not clear that we'd be able to actually pull that off. So thank you again.
Thank you, guys. All right.
He wants to know about your Scrabble socks.
From the girlfriend who loves Scrabble and beats my ass every time. All right, this question. Okay. Nuclear power and partisanship. You want to know something crazy? I did a nuclear power monologue in Atlanta, and I got massive cheers. And I was like, wow, people cheering for nuclear power. What a cool fucking audience that we have here. Thank you. I thought this was a really thoughtful question. So it says, I guess I'm reading in third person. Saagar has been a particularly boisterous voice on the importance of nuclear energy for fighting climate change. It seems like nuclear power is an issue that isn't subject to very much partisanship. Both sides seem equally uninterested in moving forward on nuclear power. Is this a blessing or a curse for the future of nuclear energy? If one party were to make serious efforts to make nuclear a larger part of our energy policy, would that just instantly polarize the issue? Or is an issue that's genuinely and reliably not partisan? What do you think, Krystal?
I think it's neither blessing nor curse. I think it's an opportunity.
Yes.
It could really go either way, because on the one hand, it could just be, totally panned by both sides. But because it's not this polarized issue to start with, you could have an opportunity here. And I mean, it was encouraging that nuclear was included in the Inflation Reduction Act.
Yes.
There has been, I think Sweden is doing something. I sent you an article about Germany. Like there is California, Gavin Newsom. So there is genuine progress on the issue. And I just think it's important to keep it in that realm of not being a like D versus R kind of a thing.
100%. I don't know if you guys saw this, but actually Greta Thunberg just gave an interview, who had been vehemently anti-nuclear power, just gave an interview where she was like, no, actually, Germany, we need to keep these nuclear reactors
That's a big deal.
going. That's a huge deal.
It's a big deal.
And part of the reason that I didn't want to dunk on her Or, maybe like, oh, it's a reversal. It was just like, hey, welcome to the resistance, Greta. It's one of those things that like, we will welcome you with open arms from whichever side they happen to be on. It's so undeniable when people are literally freezing in Europe that it's a terrible idea. And whenever coal and,
Well, and when they're
CO2
like, oh,
is
instead of
going up.
nuclear, let's go to coal.
Right? I'm like, well, that doesn't seem particularly
I don't think this is
green.
the direction we're supposed to be going in.
Exactly.
but
So
yeah.
anyway, I think that there's a big opportunity there. I thought it was a really thoughtful question. It kind of gets to the heart of what we think about, which is like, how do you cover these things in a way that can appeal to everyone? And at the end of the day, like, we're interested in moving things forward, things like nuclear power or the stock ban. You got to strategically think about how you message and actually get it done. So that's a big lesson in Washington.
Yes.
All right, let's go to the next one.
All right, next one from Max Barker. In honor of the Starbucks Union, what is your Starbucks order? I am a pumpkin spice guy myself.
have a lot
Bold
of judgment for
admission
this man.
there, Max. What, Saagar, what's your order?
I'm a boring guy, black coffee. I'll just go black, blonde roast, whenever you can get it in the morning.
That's revolting.
What can I say?
I don't know how I work with this character because that's disgusting. All right, so lately, I like to switch it up. But lately, if I'm gonna go in and get like the real drink, I get a grande iced vanilla chai tea latte with the pumpkin cold foam, which is so good. That shit is delicious. And I know it probably has like 1 million calories and 87 grams of sugar in it, but it's really good.
I'm
Saagar.
glad the
You should try
baristas are
it.
unionizing because they deserve to get paid for making that shit.
Yeah. My 14-year-old, she's she's like on TikTok all the time or whatever, and she's always every time we go anywhere, she has the fucking most complicated orders because she sees these things on TikTok. Like, I need it half this and half that, and only 1/4 ice. And I'm like, Ella, why are you always so freaking extra? But that's why. Anyway, so I feel like my order is actually kind of basic compared to hers, in my opinion.
Next one. Seth Dubin, Behind the Curtain. I'm thrilled for the success of you guys. I listen to you on Spotify. Thank you. All right, we'll skip the. Here's my question. I can't imagine how much work goes into each episode that you record, so please tell us. It is clear that you both are constantly mainlining news, history, names of people in Congress, so much more. It's so sad that comes through. How much time does that all take, and how do you then put together a concise show chock full of tear sheets, interviews, etc.?
That's actually
Seth from
that's
Pittsburgh.
actually the hardest part.
Oh, yeah.
Is condensing it. I mean, guys, we really love what we do. And so it's not like we're thinking of it even as work. How many hours goes into it? Like, all of the hours go into it. I mean, really, like we're constantly podcasts or reading articles or reading a new book. I mean, we thinking about it. It's just like, it's our life, and we truly, truly love it and are incredibly grateful to get the chance to spend all those hours contributing to something that we get to put out into the world. So honestly, it doesn't feel like it's a burden or like it's work. It really feels, even when the news is heavy, it really feels like a joy. The most difficult part is then condensing that all down. And I will say, especially I feel like lately, because, as you guys, as probably, I think, regular viewers of the show or listeners of the show know, we've been going really deep on what's going on in Ukraine. And there are so many details, there's so many developments, there's so much about it that is consequential and important, and global leaders everywhere saying this or that about it. That's the lift, is to then take all of that into the funnel and be able to tell some sort of coherent story that you guys are going to be able to understand about what is happening today and how it matters to you. So that's the part that can be tricky, and we try to put a lot of thought into.
It's really hard, but it's like you said, look, I consider it one of the great privileges of my life that I even get to talk about the obscure books, podcasts, all these other things that I have up in my head, and people actually give a shit. And not only that, well, I mean, some of the most edifying messages that I will get are like, I bought a book because of you, or like, I listened to this podcast because of something that you had mentioned on the show, Krystal. And it's like that, helping people who are just going about their lives and trying to make sense of the world, and hopefully just adding like 1 or 2% or something like that. It's all I ever wanted to do anyway. So it's just a privilege of my life that I even get to be here in front of all of you.
And I will say, I think we feel a little more responsibility around the way we program the show now than maybe we did in the beginning. Because in the beginning, it never occurred to me that we would be anyone's like sole source of news. But now we get a lot of feedback from people who say, you know, when I want to know what's going in the world, like you are the place that we go. And so
that's so crazy to me.
Which is crazy. I mean, but we've, you know, this isn't to be like self-aggrandizing. It's just to say we take that really seriously. And so I think we've tried to lean into hard news. We both, you know, really are interested in and passionate about and somewhat well-read on foreign affairs and also economics. We've tried to lean really heavily into those because I think those are the two most significant stories that are going on right now. So that's part of the way, you know, the program has evolved, and we've shifted our programming philosophy because we really do take that responsibility very seriously. So thank you for entrusting us with that.
Thank you. Next question. This is a really fascinating question. Do you want to read it, Krystal?
Yes.
Okay.
So, medication advertisement from Chase Dahlman. I saw a commercial recently with a young woman that is taking antidepressant medication. There was a line during the commercial where she says, after taking the antidepressants, I realized this is what peace feels like. Now, I'm not saying, this is back to the questioner, I'm not saying mental health is not a growing issue in the country, but I do think that just defaulting to taking medication rather than switch life habits choices should be emphasized more than just medication. I was wondering your thoughts on the overprescribing and advertising of medication in society today. Great question.
Fantastic question.
What are your thoughts, Saagar?
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, you know, we've talked about it, and you know, I don't want to stigmatize people that need medication, but
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that one of the things that broke me is when I read that piece that I highlighted on the show about a teenage girl that was on 13 different types of mental health medication, and I'm like, this is a developing brain of which we are screwing with, and we don't even know the consequences. And then you multiply that by millions. Whenever you have things that you can do, which don't make any money. Oh, and it turns out, actually, that's the problem, that they don't make any money. The most basic tenets of human civilization, which people have known, my grandma would have told me, or my great-great-great-grandmother would have told me, and any one of yours would have too, that are put aside in exchange for a pill that they can bill your insurance company for $10. Oh, and then actually you reached your cap on your insurance, and now you have to pay out $300 a month or $500 a month, or you need to go and see X specialists and all of that. And look, maybe it's the case sometime, but one of those stats that just kills me is that some 90% of the advertising on cable news is from the big pharma companies.
I mean, that should be illegal.
90%.
If you watch any, it's like every commercial is ask your doctor about blah, blah, blah. Because it's all old people watching the channels too, by the way. I mean, that is a big part of it. First, let me say, some people do need medication. Yes. Kanye West, I'm looking at you. That's number one. But I mean, number two, it all comes back to profit. I mean, that's really the core issue at the center of our broken healthcare system, where we spend more than any other country and we get worse results than any other developed nation. And it is because it is a gigantic, incredibly profitable grift for a lot of criminals. I mean, think about what these people, I don't even want to go down the road of the opioid addiction crisis and the way that they sold us pills and got this country addicted and, you know, destroyed so many lives in a way that no like drug cartel ever could have done. But ultimately, yeah, it all comes back to what can we sell and what will be profitable. I'm going to be careful about how I say this because I haven't looked enough into this study, but I saw a recent study on, you guys probably saw this too, questioning whether colonoscopies are actually effective for, I mean, this has been the thing that you were told as you get older, you must get the colonoscopy. And obviously it's an unpleasant procedure. And obviously we want to prevent and detect cancer and all of these things. But, you know, there's new questions. I'm not saying don't get your colonoscopy, but there's a new big study that raises questions over whether this even works. And so you once again ask yourself, this is where the corruption of the system really gets you. You're like, have we just been fucking lied to about this too? And maybe we haven't, maybe we haven't. But because we know that there are so many people on the take just trying to profit rather than trying to actually have a population that is healthy, it leads you to question every single thing that you are ultimately told. So, I mean, yeah, that's ultimately what it comes down to.
Yeah, very true. All right, next question. Matthew Lowe. Does MSM really care about the key demo, money or power? This is a great question.
Yeah.
I often hear you guys mention CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News are failing in the key demo. Yes, we did mention that. About 50-year-olds make up more than 50% of voters. Money is power, but knowledge is also power. Do you think that the mainstream media outlets or their backers are willing to sacrifice profitability for the sake of manipulating the more powerful half of voters? Or is it really something less nefarious like incompetence? What do you think, Krystal?
No, I actually, okay, so I think it really depends. So MSNBC, I have the most insight into that network because I used to work there. And MSNBC was never an ideological play. When they first launched, they were just trying to be like CNN and, you know, they had Brian Williams on there and whatever. And then they sort of stumbled into Keith Olbermann, who had, you know, it was during the Iraq War and he'd do these monologues and there was very little critique of the Bush administration and that took off. And they said, aha, this is a way to make money. And then everything else flows from there. So it's not like the executives were like, we believe in this, you know, left ideology or liberal principles or whatever, and therefore no, they were like, we can make money this way. And so I think for them and for CNN, it really is ultimately just about the bottom line and what they can do profitably. And you can see their maneuvers over the years to try to like maximize what they're doing. Fox was a more from the jump overtly ideological play. And so I think in some ways they would be willing to sacrifice some on profitability in order to further their ideological project at Fox versus MSNBC and CNN. But you know, ultimately, these are all ecosystems that are shaped by corporate profits, advertising, what they can squeeze out of it. And so that's always going to be the, you know, the nature of their business. That's always going to be the sea that they swim in. Now, one thing I will say, and this is what CNBC has found out, because they have a small audience, but it's a very wealthy audience. So they can charge very high advertising rates. And this was the inside of Morning Joe, where they have a comparatively small audience, but it's all these influencers, they're relatively wealthy, and so again, the advertising rates are more expensive. So there is a business play in focusing on that power and elite lens as well.
I think you're right, but it also goes back to the pharma conversation that we just had, which is that some 90% of the ads on TV are from big pharma companies. But here's part of the problem. All these TV companies, which are multi-million, you know, enterprises in their own right, are owned by multi-billion enterprises in their own right. So sometimes the profit doesn't even matter. Like to them, it's all about influencing the game. So at the level, I think that the questioner is actually kind of correct, which is that if you're the CEO of Comcast or whatever, you're not gonna use your media outlet to pump your stock or to protect yourself. You'd be a fool not to do so.
Yeah.
Over at Discovery, it's the same thing. I recently opened my HBO app to see Chris Wallace's face just staring at me. And I'm like, oh, why is this here? How do I possibly click far enough away to, do I really want to watch Chris Wallace interview Tyler Perry? And that's actually what they were advertising for me.
But, you know, and that does bring it back to, they're like, is it just incompetence? There is a high level of that as well. I mean, but seriously, like, think of who they have propped up as, like, the futures of their networks or, you know, going back, not that we want to keep dunking on CNN Plus, but what the hell, why not? I mean, they're like, oh, Casey Hunt and Chris Wallace, this is what the kids want. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Anyone with 3 brain cells could have told you this thing was completely doomed from the start. And yet, the great minds in the TV world thought this was a brilliant idea. I don't know. So you can't underestimate the power of just sheer, like, being inside the tiniest, dumbest bubble ever and blatant incompetence.
Being really bad at your job.
Yeah, just being bad at your job. That's right.
Next question. This is for all of you.
Yeah.
What of Krystal and Saagar's worst verbal tics?
So there's a little bit of a backstory with this one. At the last live show, we got asked the question. We had Kyle and Marshall were there as well, and they got asked like what our verbal tics are.
Yes.
And which was a little dodgy for Kyle since we are engaged, and he could have really screwed that one up. So anyway, they're not here, but you all are. and you listen to us a lot, apparently. So we thought we would ask you all, and you can just yell them out, what some of the things we say over and over again, probably without even realizing it, that irritates you or that you like or whatever that you notice.
Amazing show.
Amazing show.
That's not a verbal tick. That's a chop.
That's intentional.
Yeah, come on, shout 'em. The clown. That's a good one. That's a good one.
That's a great word, though. You
What
gotta
was that
admit,
one?
that's a great word.
The clown, ultimately.
Ultimately.
That's a good one.
I say that one a
Marshall
lot.
said that I say, quote, these people in a very scary way. Is that true? I've never thought about that.
Kyle said I say writ large, and I don't use it the way that it's like definitionally supposed to be used, but whatever. What does he know?
Apparently I say in order to a lot. I didn't know that bugs people. What was it? Boondoggle. That's a good one.
It's another great word, though. What was...
Live show.
Yeah. The questioner last time said they were irritated by us saying horrific all the time. Horrific was the one that they noticed.
Utterly incompetent.
That's another good one.
Unconscionable. I think that made an appearance tonight.
Nice.
Portend. That's a good one.
Do you say that?
Apparently.
We're oblivious, honestly.
You guys try speaking fucking 2 hours a day, all right? See what happens.
See if you don't repeat
We'll
yourself.
see what
a few
verbal
times.
tics you people have.
You know, the thing I noticed too is we'll pick up language off of each other.
Oh, absolutely. Facile. Facile. That was an interesting one. I think you said that recently.
Yes, yeah. And I mean, I don't even, we're not even aware we do it, but it's just like, yeah, when you're going, that's going to happen sometimes. Sorry, guys.
Crazy pills. That's right. Well, that's
Crazy
not mine.
pills.
I stole it from Zoolander. All right.
Last question from Mac. What is the future of Breaking Points? What do you think, Saagar?
It's just this. At the end of the day, we never thought this was even going to be humanly possible. I didn't even think that when we launched the show, we were like, please cover expenses, please cover expenses, please cover expenses. And then within 2 weeks, so many people show up that we're like, oh my God, not only do we cover expenses, these people are asking for a new set. These people are asking for more show. These people enable us to launch Counterpoints. By the way, they've been doing a fantastic job. Thank you.
You guys like them? I have to say, I mean, obviously, Emily and Ryan were some of the OGs with us over at Rising, part of election coverage, part of everything we were doing. And we didn't mean to steal them away from the Hill, but that was just kind of a little bit of a silver lining, if I'm going to be honest with you. But I already was a fan. I think that they have just knocked it out of the park. I'm a legit fan of what they're doing. The conversation is super smart. They have a great vibe together. So it has been really exciting to be able to expand with them. And then also, the partners that we have and the content that they bring to the table. We have Jordan Sheridan out in the field getting exclusive footage. We have Matt Stoller, who is like the foremost expert on antitrust and monopolies and, is always digging deep into the weeds. We have Maximilian Alvarez covering labor. Love Max. James Lee,
That guy is awesome.
I think James does some of the most incredible, thought-provoking content. He had one of his segments recently that really went quite viral on seed oils, which I had no idea.
Check that one out.
This is one of those things. Saagar and I operate in different media and life ecosystems. I'm in the soccer mom demo, and he's in the debates over seed oil demo, apparently. But yeah, I was kind of stunned by how much interest there was. Anyway, I didn't name all the partners. We love them all equally. I have no favorite children. But in terms of the future of Breaking Points, I mean, this is the grand plan, or there is no grand plan, or whatever. We're just sort of going step by step of what we think is the next right move that is going to provide the best experience and most sort of complete ecosystem for you all. So that's what we're thinking about all the time is how can we build in a way that's not going to be too much of an overreach, that's smart, that's sensible, that fits with what we're doing, but that continues to, grow this little universe that we have. So thank you for the feedback on all of that too, because I'm really excited about the direction we've been able to go in.
Yeah, look, for us, you guys keep showing up, we're gonna keep doing it. It's what we love to do anyway. It's what we would have done. I would have done it for 1/10 the amount of people. The fact that it even exists. It's just so amazing. Can we give also a round of applause to all of the guys who are working here, who have enabled?
Yep.
The guys in the back, hope sure you get the tips. Sound, light. Producer James has been done a fantastic job. Come on out.
Come on out, James.
Come take a bow. There he is. Show off the t-shirt. Woo! Look at that t-shirt, everybody.
Union made and American made,
Yes,
by the
union
way.
and made in America.
So, which is important to say because if you guys do buy t-shirts, you're going to notice they are a little bit pricey. That's not really going to us.
Yes.
Because we got them union made, American made, wanted to live our values, and it does cost a little bit of extra. So, for the t-shirts and the mugs, both union made and American made.
I'll just say that. Thank you all so much. I mean, like I'll say it a million times, we're so grateful to be even able to do this, to have hundreds of people show up, to hear people talk about politics, to just think about that we can live actually better lives. And the only reason that we're able to sit here in front of you, the only reason that we're able to do the show is because of all your support. We've grown it. You guys showed up for us in a way that we could never have even imagined. So it is just such a tremendous privilege of our lives to be here in front of you guys and to be in Chicago, to have something like this enabled. And I just can't thank you all enough.
That's right.
Thank you all so much.
Bottom line, guys, we love y'all so much. We truly, truly mean it. We hope you had a great time tonight. We really enjoy it. It's a wonderful crowd, wonderful energy in this cold, little bit frigid city, but wonderful, warm energy in this room. So thank you, guys. We love y'all. Have a wonderful night.
We love you guys. Be safe on your way home, okay?